We all hear a lot about digital transformation, but unless you've been there and done it, it's easy to feel that transformation is a significant challenge that might seem difficult to conquer. That is why we've launched the Good, Bad and Ugly podcast series. Each episode, we talk to people who've been at the heart of transformation, and we get under the skin, not just of what they did and how they did it, but how it felt to be at the center of it. Welcome to our podcast, The Good, the Bad and the Ugly of Digital Transformation. On today's podcast, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Stuart Munton. Stuart is here today as part of And Digital celebration of our 10th anniversary. And as we look to celebrate our first decade, we want to share lessons learned from the journey we've been on, and importantly, how our purpose is central to what we do at And Digital, both within our business, but also the work that we do with our clients. So, Stu, it's fantastic to have you with us.
Lovely to be here.
If I can call you Stu. And, let's crack straight into it. I think it would be brilliant if you could just share and talk to us about your intro for yourself. I could do it, but I won't dare to do so. I think you can do a much better job yourself.
Thank
just
you.
Intro the role that you've played in And.
So my current title is Chief of Group Delivery. So I work in our group function at the moment, but I've kind of done everything at And. I'm officially number 10 so from the organisation. So I joined in 2014. I was strangely our first squad lead. So I looked after our first squad. I set up our coaching function. I set up our academy. I set up our delivery consulting group. I've kind of worked through our core teams, our group teams, and whatever our kind of central functions have been known at times. But kind of the kind of thread that kind of runs all the way through that is I've owned how And works. Not so much on the technical side, but on the kind of the delivery, the agile, the product side. And so that's my background, and that's kind of where I spend a lot of my time.
Brilliant. And I know I'm speaking to a veteran of the business. I didn't know you were number 10.
Number 10.
Employees. So that's good to know. I've learned something already. Can you talk to us about, and our business was founded with real purpose at its absolute core, but can you talk to us a little bit about that purpose to close the world's, help to close the world's digital skills gap? And it'd be great, you've obviously been very close to that journey over the last 10 years. Talk to us about some of the examples of things that we've done along the way.
And there's a lot, but again, if I go back to almost the kind of time pre-And, so I got involved with And Digital through Stephen Patterson. So me and Stephen had worked together before, and so weirdly, I'd also worked for his wife before. So I've known Stephen for 20 years. A long connection. But me and Stephen and Pramjit went for dinner back in 2013. And at the point, And Digital didn't have a name. It was a kind of concept that Stephen and Pramjit were kind of working through. And they were talking to me effectively as a potential client, as a sounding board. I worked for William Hill at the time. I looked after a team of 200. We used lots of consultants. We were interested in agile and delivery because we were doing that as a kind of group and we're doing that transformation. But we were trying to work out kind of how do we hold on to that ourselves. And so the kind of essence of what became And Digital was in that conversation because Stephen and Pramjit were kind of pitching what you don't want to lose intellectual property. You want to think about kind of the upskilling journey. You want to think about kind of owning that yourself. And me as a potential client kind of gave him feedback. It was a nice dinner, as ever is with Pramjit. And we kind of gave some feedback and we kind of parted ways. But it kind of stuck with me about the kind of concept that had been talked around at dinner about closing the digital skills gap, owning knowledge, owning that thing, growing your own teams, growing yourself as an organization. And then 6-9 months later, I joined And. Because it resonated so well with me that I went like, that's the organization I want to go and work for because the concept is just there. It's great. It's exactly the right thing. So that was kind of how I got kind of drawn in by the digital purpose.
Yeah. I love that. And just to give context to those who don't know Paramjit and Stephen, so Paramjit is our founder and CEO to this day, and Stephen, another one of the founding team.
There's been lots of examples of where we have been upskilling ourselves, and if there's sort of three different kind of distinct groups from an upskilling and closing the digital skills gap kind of point of view. The first is with our Andes. So the Andes are the people who work for Digital. The setting up of our academy and the boot camps is kind of the kind of core thing for that. So back when we first started, Lisa was running that team at the time, and then I ended up taking that team over. And it's great because actually we know that people want to work for an organisation that cares about their development, and closing the digital skills gap with your own people, really important. And for us as a professional services business, having people with skills which are the next level skills, we can talk about AI and how we're developing AI skills is really, really important. And so if you look at our upskilling, about halfway through our journey, when we moved into our second BHAG, our second big, hairy, audacious goal, we started to look at the numbers behind what we are doing about upskilling and what are we doing to kind of measure that purpose. And so since that point, about 5 years ago, we've been counting how many people have been upskilled. There's about 65,000 people so far that have been upskilled since that point. Before that point, loads more as well. But again, we didn't have the kind of metrics and the tracking it. And again, we want to be kind of data driven. And so from that 65,000, about 20,000 of those kind of upskilling events and upskilling activities are with Andes. And that's cool because we want people from Digital to be upskilled and we want them to have great skills. The next set is then, that's a variety of different kind of upskilling activities, such as kind of like we do kind of Scrum training and JavaScript training and all that kind of stuff. The next set is then our clients, and closing the digital skills gap with our clients is an important proposition for how we talk to our clients, because we want to build great products with them, but also we want to build their people. And so we kind of talk to them about kind of how we upskill our own people, and that resonates with our clients. And this is as I was saying, this is one of the reasons that I came to Digital, because I knew that as an employer, as a person who looked after a team of 200, I wanted to upskill my people. I wanted my people in my organization to have that knowledge. And closing the digital skills gap with my team, me in that kind of scenario as a client, super important. And so one of the things we've been doing is that, as I like, we've done 20,000 upskilling events with Andes, but we've also done 20,000 upskilling events with clients. And some of those that are kind of memorable through the times, as I said, I've been here for a while, so there's a variety. The ones that kind of resonate for me are work we did for Taylor and Francis. So Taylor and Francis are an academic publisher, and we kind of help them on their complete transformation journey. And part of the transformation journey is closing the digital skills gap. So they wanted to transform from a kind of more academic publishing traditional business into a digital business. And they were quite well on the journey, but they needed to know, how do they do it in an agile way? How do they do it in a product way? And so we did work with their leadership, we did work with their teams, and then it started to snowball within the organization. So we started with one team, and then we ended up with more and more and more. So we ended up doing versions of our onboarding bootcamp with about 200 people across their organisation, a load of people in Oxfordshire, which was very straightforward and easy for us to get to. We were out in Didcot, which is kind of where they're based. But then that worked really well. So we went and did that same thing in Florida. So we went to Boca Raton and did work with their teams there, and that worked really well. So we then went and did it with their teams in Bangalore. And so there was this really interesting kind of set of kind of knowledge that was. It was helping Taylor and Francis become digital. It was helping them to work in a more digital way, following the kind of patterns that we were setting, but were very tailored to them. And so there was a kind of this kind of global pattern that kind of set up their digital function. The other one that kind of came to mind was the work we did for Whitbread and Premier Inn. So Whitbread and Premier Inn started kind of year two-ish sort of client when we first started with them, and they started in a tiny room in our offices. Whitbread Digital, as it ended up becoming, was about 2 people from Whitbread and about 8 people from And Digital. And we kind of built that, and it kind of worked quite nicely as a kind of individual Scrum team. And then it scaled, and we could see actually that was successful, and then it got bigger. And then we went to, they then kind of found themselves a bigger office, first off in somewhere over in Farringdon, and then they kind of moved into Hatton Gardens. And we built their teams up. And so there were Andys within their teams, upskilling their people by working with them. We were running Scrum courses, we were running JavaScript courses, we were running SAFe courses, a whole variety of kind of interventions. But we also had our agile coaches involved, and they were doing kind of coaching and mentoring and at both the team level and at the kind of the group level. Eventually, they became reasonably self-sufficient from us because at points we were a large proportion of that function. But over time, as they started to kind of become more mature in the kind of digital transformation, as we upskilled them, they got it, and they were kind of taking that on themselves, and they become highly successful in terms of how they work as a digital function.
Yeah, I and if I can interject there, I mean, I think there are a lot of us who are, you know, I'm certainly with Anne, because I think that part of the proposition is absolutely where the market is and has been for some time. But a lot of people have on supplier side and on partner side been slower to really grab hold of that and help to upskill and leave clients in a much more future fit state than when you started working with them. The thing that I've always loved, and having now over my 4 years seen it come to life, is how that happens as part of a delivery.
Yep.
So, you know, like I love to think of it's transformation through delivery.
Yep.
And by working really collaboratively with the client to actually, it's not we're going to tell you how it's done. It's actually, we're going to create one team. And I genuinely have seen this, you know, recently within Aviva, for example,
Yep.
where we've upskilled developers in new languages. And you walk into a room and actually you can't pick out who are the Andys, and everything at Andy is a play on the word and. So who are our team members and who are the client's team members? Because actually they have really come together so cohesively as a team. But to see people pick up a new skill
Yep.
and become really proficient, be picking up tickets and working as high-performing team members in such a short space of time is a really powerful thing.
Absolutely, and it kind of ranges from like the kind of the big transformation. The Aviva one was an interesting one, that kind of Xamarin transformation, to smaller ones. So even in some of our kind of smaller engagements, there is, how do you work as a kind of startup team? How do you kind of do those sorts of things, and everywhere in between. And the scale and the variety of our clients is one of the things which makes it interesting for the Andys, but it also allows us to kind of go, actually it's a bit of, again, the power of the big and the small. Yeah, so together it allows our people, our Andys, to kind of see various different industries, so they learn through that. The clients learn from that. The smaller clients learn from what we know from the bigger clients. The bigger clients learn from what we know from the smaller clients, and it's a nice virtuous process. So as I said, like there's been kind of Andys being upskilled as the first set of this 65,000. There's been clients being upskilled as the second set of this 65,000. The final set is probably the kind of higher purpose group, which is kind of communities and partners and people out there. Yeah. So because the first two groups, great, we're upskilling, we are closing the digital skills gap with our people and with our clients' people. But those people are fairly privileged already. Yeah. They work in reasonably well-paying technical jobs. That's why they work for Digital. It's why they work for our clients. The third group is a much wider group. So and there's 25,000 people we've upskilled in that space. And these are people from a range of disadvantaged backgrounds. These are people who are digitally excluded. These are a variety of kind of different backgrounds of people. And so for us as a company, that the ability to do those first two is kind of what we do as an organization. The purpose gets really, really shown in that third group. So examples of kind of sort of the kind of bigger end of those sorts of examples. We've been working with Google Digital Garage. So through last year, we were working on kind of redoing some of their programs and looking at some of that. through that program, us delivering the program that we wrote for them, we've upskilled 3,500 people. And that's 3,500 people who come from places and disadvantaged backgrounds, small, medium-sized businesses. I went to one of their sessions in Hounslow. It was excellent. There's Google dragged people out. So if people hear the Google brand, they go, yes, I want to go get involved in that. And we're talking to them now about how small businesses use AI. How small businesses think like bigger businesses. How do you use kind of Google tools, Google AdWords to make your business stand out from the street? So really cool stuff that we're doing, which is up with the kind of power of Google as a kind of network to upskill more people. But then there's other ones, such as the work we've done with the School of Code. The School of Code is a DFE-funded boot camp. So they find people who want to become software engineers. And we've got people on our side who are experts in that. So we have people who are experts in JavaScript and Java, lots of different technologies, DevOps, platform work, loads of different things. And they love going and spending time with people who are coming up through that process, because we've upskilled 1,500 people with the School of Code. And these are people who wouldn't normally meet those sorts of people. They don't normally kind of come across professional software engineers in their day-to-day. And these are people who are kind of changing careers, who have kind of taken the effort to come and do that sort of stuff. And it's really good. So the School of Code has been a really interesting engagement, but also the Institute of Coding. The Institute of Coding is another DFE-funded boot camp where we've done work with probably about 800 people. They're funded by Bath University and the Open University. So really cool stuff they're doing. Again, but they find disadvantaged groups and they're helping them get into tech jobs. Yeah. And our people, our Andys, love spending time with them. So, because they can go, actually, I know you've learned this stuff. I know you've learned the syntax of this, but actually this is what we do with clients in real life to build the products that you use on a daily basis. And it's invaluable kind of information for the people who are going through those boot camps.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating, and I think the one thing that I never ceases to inspire me is when you look at the amount of grassroots work that's happening, across our business, the impact that we're having in local communities. And when I was looking after one of our London clubs, we did some incredible work with this. A STEM academy in Dagenham, and that was focused particularly on young women, and really helping to demonstrate to them the careers that they could have, and hosting them in our club, in our offices. And just the impact, and working with the head there, the impact that had of opening their eyes up to a career that is very much open to them. So, I mean, I see this as being a way to really increase diversity in its fullest meaning.
Yes.
Within our sector as well, and within the broader sectors in business, because these are people that, yes, they can go on to work with companies like ours, but also they will find their way. Every organization has software developers and digital teams in their businesses now. So the impact that you can have in terms of the diversity angle as well is really tremendous.
It makes such a difference. I mean, like the Anshi Cam program that you were talking about is great, because it basically is allowing us to go, actually, we need to focus into groups which are minorities within the tech space. And Digital does a great job in terms of our numbers and our percentages. We hit above our percentages against the market, but we can do more because actually, and that's where Anshi Can comes in really well. But also kind of relationships we've had with organisations like Ahead Partnerships. With Ahead Partnerships, like in Leeds alone, we've worked with 600 school children. And it's cool. I mean, those are kids from schools in and around Leeds who may not have considered a career in tech. And if you get to them early enough, if you get to them before they've kind of gone, oh, well, that's just techie stuff, and that's just for those kind of techie boys over there, and you're going, no. Tech is for all of us, because we need to be involved. We need people involved in it. We need different views, different kind of people in it, because otherwise, if you have the same people always coming up, you get homogenous products from homogenous views. And diversity, we kind of talk about it from a numbers kind of point of view sometimes, but actually the business value is super important because you get different views, you get different opinions, and those different views and those different opinions actually match what society is. If society was exactly what the recruitment pattern of traditional IT firms was, then fine, but it's not.
Yeah, thank goodness.
I mean, thank goodness, yeah.
Life's much more interesting. That's fascinating. And I think, the other aspect of it is our Andys, our team members get so much out of their experiences. It gives a real sense of purpose to our employees. Yep. And so I think it's very much part of, it's part of our culture. It's what we do. It's really important to us. It's linked to our purpose as a business, but on a very individual level for our team members. And I know for myself, when I've been engaged in that kind of work, it gives you as an individual a real sense of purpose, and feeling that you're having impact that is really valuable.
Yeah, I mean, because all of the people who work for Digital have the opportunity to go and do this sort of volunteering and upskilling work, and the more they get into it, the more they do more, and then they realize that the impact they're having, and then you find somebody who is like you may have worked with like 5 years ago, and actually now they then come back and go, "Hi Stuart, I'm actually doing this now, thank you very much," and you go like, yeah, that's real purpose.
Yeah,
that it's a really nice thing, and sometimes you never hear from those people again, but sometimes you do. Yeah, and so that's where some of the kind of programs that we work with are really kind of useful in that sense. So there's stuff early years from a school's point of view, but there's also then kind of stuff from kind of the middle in the university. So we work with Upreach, which is a charity that supports disadvantaged people at university. So they already have gone through struggles to get to university, but actually what we're trying to help with that group, and we've upskilled about 1,000 people with our partnership with Upreach, and we're going to actually, this is how you get ahead and you stand out above the other people around you. It's not to put the other people at a disadvantage, but they already are advantaged, those other people. It's trying to level the playing fields, and it's trying to get to kind of an equitable position. And so it's just really good stuff. And the people from Digital who do that work, they love doing it, and the societal impact they're having is great. And that's a really great purpose story from an Digital point of view, because it's true. Yeah, our people love doing it. The people love getting it. It's good for us. It's good for them.
It's a win-win, isn't it? I'm really interested in also like having seen this come to life in a lot of our client organizations as well. Often this can be the tip of the spear of a broader people transformation. And I think when you're going in and you're helping to upskill people within a client, I'm interested in your views around like that aspect of the transformation, because you often spark something, and I think particularly where there is a real I don't want to call it a war for talent, but it is a difficult area to recruit into, to find great talent. I think that it continues to be the case. Organizations are then investing in their talent to keep them current.
Yep.
And there are sometimes, and I've heard these conversations playing out in client organizations, is you've got people that are difficult to retain.
Yep.
And so you're effectively investing in making them more valuable and attractive in the marketplace. I'm interested in your thoughts on that aspect of upskilling.
So you need to do it because you need better people. As an organization, you want people who understand your business, you want people who understand your culture, but you may want them to be able to do something different. So there was a product management boot camp we ran about kind of 4-ish years ago, with a company called Firstport. And they do lease management, for buildings, and you'll find Firstport written on lots of buildings all over the place, and that's what they do as an organisation. So their business is fairly specific to what they do. So therefore, knowing what they do was important to them. But they wanted to have another group of about 6 to 8 product owners. So where do you get them from? Do you find them from elsewhere who don't understand your business domain, bring them in and try to get them to understand your business domain? which is quite complicated and complex and unusual in their space? Or do you find people who are doing sort of adjacent roles within the organization and upskill them in the kind of technical product skills? And that's what we did for them. So we helped them to identify people from their contact centers, from their test teams, from their field teams, who knew their business, who really got what they did, loved working for that business and what it was for, but kind of needed to be product owners. And we then went through them and we kind of helped them select the people who had the kind of most aptitude towards it naturally. And then we ran them through a 2-3 week boot camp, similar to how we would kind of onboard people into our digital. And they were super happy. Those people, again, those are some of the people I get messages from again as well, saying like, Stuart, I'm doing this. Or you connect to them on LinkedIn and you see them in their jobs and you see them progressing. They're now a senior product owner. They're now a kind of director of product. It's great. Yeah. So as an organization, they were really happy because they ended up with people with the right skills who understood the culture and understood the organization. And so it was a really good upskilling journey for them, and for an organization, and for the individuals. I mean, like you kind of, there's all these kind of anecdotes about kind of like training people and then they'll leave and all that kind of stuff. But there's a sort of response quote from that, which is Richard Branson's, but it's like, well, you need to train your people so that they could leave, and you need to treat them well enough so they don't want to.
Exactly. Yeah? I love that.
And that's how it is. Like if you train people and they do leave, fine, that's okay. Yeah, there isn't a problem with that, but you need to work on what you're doing about retention to make sure that actually is the place for them. Because if they're trained up and then they all want to leave, there's something different to your training program that needs to be changed.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So it's both a means to actually retain great talent by offering opportunities to pivot and develop themselves.
Yep.
And there are probably a lot of lessons learned in terms of overall culture and retention strategies from those people, as you say.
Yeah.
In any case. And, like skills, I mean, one of the things I've always loved about working in our space is we never stand still, and there are always new skills to be learned. And you're somebody who feeds into sort of the broader skills strategy within our business. But over the last 10 years, and there's a lot that's happened in our space over the last 10 years in the world of tech, from your perspective, what are the skills that are ever present? And are there any gaps that are consistently widening?
Yeah. So we have always positioned ourselves as an agile organization. So understanding an agile mindset, understanding Scrum, Kanban, etc. Those things have been all the way through our process. When we first started, we thought we were going to do much more Java than we do. We actually do much more JavaScript now. And again, I know that they sound similar. They're very different in terms of languages, in terms of how they get used. And so that was an interesting journey for us in terms of from a kind of Java starting group to more JavaScript. But coding languages are coding languages. Sometimes they come in and sometimes they go. So we do less PHP now than we used to because as a language that's sort of dropping off. But we also do kind of more Python now since that's kind of took a resurgence. And so the agile processes are there and they will be there until we find a better thing that's not agile. And agile is 25 years oldish now. The product kind of processes are there and they'll be there until we find a better way around doing that. The languages come and go in popularity, and it depends on who's doing what and what language. Every week or so, there's a new JavaScript framework that comes out that people have to kind of learn, but that's fine. And that kind of there's a constant churn of those sorts of things. So if those are kind of the kind of base kind of sort of technical skills, over and above that, what we always need is people who can work in teams. So again, like the kind of three things that I always kind of talk about is like we need teamwork. Yeah, people who can work in teams. So software engineering is not an individual game; it's a team sport. And the way that we play it, sometimes is teams, and then sometimes teams of teams. Yeah, and so there you may have 100 people who need to work in a team that are working on a big thing, or in some of our larger engagements. Like we were talking yesterday at a conference. One of the engagements we were doing with IKEA had 4,000 people working together. Yeah, and how do you get that stuff to work? And so so the team working kind of piece is really important. The next piece, which is a constant, is empathy. So knowing how to talk to people, knowing actually if someone's upset, you don't just layer into them more. If you can help somebody, you do. How do you understand it from their perspective? So teamwork and empathy, and then finally creativity. So being able to kind of think about the problem, and that might be individual critical thinking, but it might be kind of creative patterns that you use as a team. So for me, the agile processes are changing slowly. So we do more scaled agile as we've got bigger, our engagements have got bigger, we do more of that, but actually the kind of core mindset behind it is similar. Product, similar. Technologies come and go in terms of languages. We will talk about AI at some point. But for me, if our people can be great in teams, if they can have good empathy and they can be creative, they will be a valuable member of the team. And then they'll bring the other bits and pieces of those skills into the mix.
Yeah, and that's so interesting because I think, whichever client I'm interfacing into, that ability and those skills really come into play because you're pulling so many different disciplines together in order to create the end product and outcome that you want. And being able to, if I look at in the life sciences, for example, being able to bring scientists together with software engineers, together with product owners, together with the commercial teams that are helping to drive the business, even developing a common language that team can all understand and use to communicate with one another effectively, like the effort that needs to go into that. And so often it's when those things aren't done as foundational building blocks that I think people get into trouble, right?
They do, and there are methods to help with this sort of stuff. I mean, like there's stuff like domain-driven design. There's team topologies. There's using Wardley mapping. There's stuff that we do as practices, which help to do those things. But in the end, like first row of the kind of the Agile Manifesto is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Yeah. It's making sure that people could, I mean, the Agile Manifesto is over 20 years old now, but it's making sure you've got people who can work with people.
It's a very human thing.
It's a very human thing. The one common thing we have at the moment within our teams is they are full of people. Yeah, they may work in a different agile manner, they have a different product manner, they may have a different coding language. They may have some AI enablement around them. Cool. Yeah. There's always people.
Yeah. I love that. Thank goodness. There's hope for me yet. And we made it to quite a way through our discussion before the AI word was brought in. But we're talking about skills, we're talking about skills gaps. It would be absolutely remiss of us not to touch on AI and the impact it is having, but is going to have, will be profound. And that's cutting through all the hype that exists. But how do you think advancements in AI technology are going to impact the skills that we'll need in the future? And bearing in mind everything that you've said around humans. Still, yes.
So the kind of stage we're going through at the moment is quite a lot of hype, but there's also benefit from it. So work that we've done at Digital has shown productivity benefits of using products like Copilot. Yeah, so actual AI enabled software developers, because if you think about the kind of if you have some people who are good at teamwork, creativity, and empathy, and they then have skills in knowing how JavaScript works, but then you've got like an AI-enabled assistant for that person who really gets the protocols, really understands the syntax, really understands how the coding language works, because it's got a really deep knowledge of the documentation. And the documentation is super structured, coding languages are super structured, it's really easy for the AI to understand them. And it can help you with those things. Whereas the human bit is then that developer going, cool, actually I'm writing something and actually I can get some enhancement, I can move faster, I can write comments, and it can give me some scaffolding in my code to kind of produce that kind of stuff. But it allows them then to have the deeper question as a human, to go and talk to the customer, to go and talk to the users, to go and talk to their product owner, go and talk to some other developer or their tester, and have like a 50-minute conversation where they would previously have been looking how to write the syntax of how to do that process within that language they were using.
Yeah.
The AI enables that because it knows it better, because it knows every single letter and word and page of all the manuals that have ever been written about how to write JavaScript. And no matter how good a human is, they will not remember it and not reference it quite as well as a human will, as the AI will. So the partnership, the AI enablement now, good, yeah. Where it's going, in my mind. So at the moment, we talk about kind of some of the languages we write as kind of fourth level abstraction. So it's because there's sort of machine code and assembly and various different kind of languages. We will end up at a point where we will be putting more natural language into the machines. It's a fifth level abstraction where basically we are asking the AI to write all of the code. Yeah, and it writes all of it. And then we have to then validate it. Humans are going to be in the loop because humans have to verify it, especially in kind of like sort of secure software and sort of safety environments. But there'll be a position at that kind of fifth level abstraction where you are talking to your AI. It's like currently we would have a kind of product owner or someone from a product or a design point of view talk to the developer, but they have to talk to them in a structured manner. Yeah, so it might be kind of using stuff like Gherkin, so given when then kind of structure of kind of language. But you talk to them in a structured way, it will then go, cool, I understand what you mean. Is it this? Produce it, you'll test it and see how it works, and you go, good, yes, I verify that as the thing I want, and then move it on. Okay, so that's a fifth level abstraction. That's between now and the next kind of 3-5 years. Beyond that, you're then going to end up in this kind of next level abstraction where you're basically going to just describe the problem space, and it will try to then have an AI assistant which will understand the solution space and then the coded space. And then there's a different abstraction at that point. That's where I start to sort of, it gets a little bit faded and a little bit like, it's a bit out there. But we'll end up in a point where the AIs will be writing code that potentially the humans don't understand. And that's the wary bit in mind, especially in kind of safety controlled environments. But we will be producing loads more code. Yeah. We will be solving the problems. We just may not know quite how we've solved them. Or the humans may not. The AI might, but the humans may not.
So interesting when you've also touched on creativity as part of the mix and kind of the human aspect of that and the importance, obviously, of fine-tuning for end users, customers, people's. Not everything is a rational. There's hearts and minds, and so let's see if we were to fast forward the conversation to 20 years, where that would be.
Yeah, I mean, so at the moment, to differentiate from another product, you need a human at the moment to kind of make a differentiation. If you ask an AI product to do that, it will look at hundreds of different references in the past and build you something that's kind of similar, maybe a little bit different, but it can only base it on that kind of stuff. At the moment, pure, novel, different ideas still come from humans. Yeah. And that's the creativity part that we kind of put into the process. And then we can check that it's doing the thing we want to do. If you are just trying to make something slightly better, AIs are going to absolutely nail that. Yeah. That's great. If you're going to try and make an absolute step change in a business model, if you were, everyone always talks about like being like Uber, like for it. But if you were the first Uber, like you're trying to explain that to an AI and going, we're going to do this thing, and you're like, you want a taxi? I mean, it doesn't
conceptually.
Conceptually, because it didn't exist before. Yeah. The way that large language models work at the moment, it's very hard for it to make those massive step changes. Yeah. Can you design Airbnb for me? You're like, I don't understand. Is it a hotel? Is it not? I don't get it. And so that's the world that AI lives in at the moment. It doesn't mean it's always going to be that way. Yeah. And so therefore, while we are still in the loop, that's cool. You know, we should be in the loop because we will add that creativity.
I think there's another whole podcast topic there, the role of AI in real disruption, which would be fascinating. But, we're talking about the digital skills gap, and, we're really focused on the gap that we see today. I think, having actually worked in higher education in a very early part of my career, I'm fascinated. Our institutions, our education system, has grappled with how to track and stay current.
Yep.
And you hear of great courses that are out there in universities, but I think, in terms of the scale of talent that we need to feed the demand for skills in the space, and that's not going to slow down.
Nope.
It's forever changing, so we're behind, and then that is compounded by the level of change that we see, which seems to only be speeding up, really. I'm really interested in your views about how all of this should, and this is a big question, really, how this starts to impact what should our schools be teaching our children and young people?
So I had an interesting example of this a couple of years ago. So my old school was running a conference, and the conference was between secondary schools, universities, and industry. And I was there representing digital industries, because you go back and go and do stuff for your schools and all that kind of stuff. And I had a conversation with the current head of computer science at my school. And I said to, and also in the same conversation, we had the head of computer science at Warwick University. And we were talking about the fact that in 5 years, this discussion about AI, I was there going, well, actually, you're not going to need to know the syntax of JavaScript. Yeah, you're not going to need that. And that's where we are. And that's where we see in 5 years. But at the same time, we are having this kind of battle for hearts and minds to get people into STEM subjects. And then we go, you need to do STEM subjects at a school level. And therefore you have to do this. But actually, by the time that person who is a 7, 8, 9-year-old now comes through the school system, comes through the university system, comes into industry, they're not going to need to know how to write JavaScript or Python, because there'll be an AI agent that does it better than them. So what they need to be able to understand is how to be, again, coming back to the same things, work in a team, creativity, empathy. Yeah. And so we had this conversation, and like the computer science teacher was looking at me going like, yeah, but we've been told we have to do all this STEM stuff. And go like, yeah, we do, because we need it now. Yeah.
We're not going to need it.
We're not, in 10 years, it's going to be a very different thing. And so we came to this conclusion between the three of us. And again, we're chatting for a while, talking about this stuff, that schools are about 5 years behind universities, and universities are about 5 years behind industry. And so therefore, if it takes you 10 years to get through that cycle, and then that's because of curriculum changes and stuff that goes with that. If it takes you 10 years to get through that cycle, and it's 10 years out of date, you're kind of a lot out of date by the time you kind of hit the market. And so we had this conversation, and everyone's going like, oh, what do we do now? Okay. After keynote at the conference, a guy called Dave Coplin, who used to be one of the CTOs at Microsoft. He's a technologist, really great guy. He stood up on stage and basically said exactly the same things. We're like, we just need people who can work together. We need people who kind of do these things. And I went like, yeah, exactly that. And everyone was expecting him to stand up on stage and go, I used to work at Microsoft, and actually everyone needs to learn technology. But he's all about the human skills. Yeah. It's because his book he wrote, which is called The Rise of the Humans. Really interesting book. It's this conversation.
I'm sure he'll love the plug.
No, it's good. He's a really
get a coffee.
Yeah, it's a really good guy. But that's where we are. Yeah, we're in the position where AI is important. We need to embrace it, because if you don't and your competitors do, they'll move faster than you and they'll defeat you. So therefore, you need to embrace it, but you also need to understand the role of the human in the cycle and where we are in it.
Yeah, and I think as a mother of a soon-to-be 21-year-old. Who's studying biomedical science, but still learning, anatomy diagrams by rote. No tech aspect to the. I'm sitting back and going, this doesn't feel right. Yeah. And those skills that you're talking about, it's things like having a growth mindset, like everything that needs to go around that, and actually building adaptability, into the curriculum. As a skill in its own right. So critical
thinking is so fundamental through all this stuff. And the anatomy one's really interesting because my daughter's in the lower sixth at the moment. She wants to be in medicine somewhere, but like she spent time training AIs. Yeah, so like she's doing these things which you can go onto these things and go, actually that looks like a dark spot in someone's lungs. That doesn't. That does. That doesn't. And so therefore she's actually involved in training stuff as an interesting thing as a med student, a pre-med kind of sort of thing, but all those industries are going to be disrupted. Yeah, they're going to be enabled more. So if you look at the kind of work that AI is doing in medicine at the moment, it's amazing, and it is going to save thousands and thousands of lives. But it's going to make the needing to know that thing different. Yeah, and like we're no longer going to need Dr. House to have this sort of strange intuition, because the strange intuition is actually based on 1 million case references, which no human is ever going to be able to do. Yeah. And so the intuition comes through the kind of the echoes in the machine.
I mean, it's so fascinating because, I mean, that's the gap right now for me is we have this really long delay in being able to actually impact the way we're bringing people through in all professions to be able to really be tooled up. So actually, as to employers, that is the real challenge, because when those young people, whether it's via apprenticeships or via a more traditional grad route, when they hit us as employees, that's really where the upskilling starts, right?
Making sure you are fungible is a really important skill.
Yeah.
Because if you are rigid in a world where everything is changing, you will run the risk of being broken.
Yeah. Wow. You've spoken about the skills that all people are going to need. And you've spoken about the human dimension to that. What is the kind of role with regards to, we all live in communities and operate as members of communities. What does that dimension bring to the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point, because I mean, like, we as Digital, we run lots of communities of practice, and that's kind of like a core informal network where people can learn from each other. And so they may be like a front-end development community of practice. It's really helpful for seniors to kind of share with juniors, and juniors to share with juniors, and people in various different kind of spaces. So the community is really important, but also supporting external communities as well. So as an example, I run the Agile Reading meetup group, and over the last couple of years, we've upskilled 1,000 people. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, like, it fits in nicely with the kind of side, but the community then helps itself. Yeah, and so humans in a AI-enabled and post-AI world will be better in their communities. So therefore, they know each other, they can connect with each other, because all the computers and the AI are already connected anyway. So we should be doing that kind of stuff. So for me, I think community is really, really important to me. So if you look on my LinkedIn profile, my kind of 2 core values are about community and curiosity. And those are the things which I think are really important. So getting people together and helping them to think about being curious.
Yeah, I love that. And I see that coming to life in our client interactions as well. And I know we talk about there being 3 beats to our proposition of guide, build, and equip. But under that equip and helping to equip and upskill our client organizations, I see connections between our communities of practice and our client communities of practice, and even in some cases helping our clients stand up those communities and start to nurture and develop them.
Getting humans to work in teams and together and being in communities is super important. Because it's what we're good at. I mean, like we grew up in kind of small tribal groups, and that's where we come from, and that's where we thrive.
Love it. Thank you, Stu. If you could leave, and I know we've traversed a huge variety of different topics. If you could leave us with one final thought, Stu, what would it be?
Build great communities of people around you and always be curious.
Thank you very much. That's everything for this edition of The Good, the Bad and the Ugly of Digital Transformation. It's been an absolute delight to have you with us, Stuart. As I said, a veteran and part of the founding team of And Digital. And thank you very much for watching and listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do remember to follow or subscribe so you'll always know when there's a new episode to enjoy. And Digital is on a mission to help close the world's digital skills gap. One of the ways we're doing this is by helping organizations deliver digital transformation more successfully through upskilling and reskilling.